And he sort of mentioned that, a lot of these providers, right, they are running the shows like cowboys. And that is his exact words, right? Running the shows like cowboys. And I was like, okay, tell me a little bit more. I'm curious now. I want to know a little bit more.
And reading. Yeah.
And, he was saying that, a lot of these providers are not doing the right things.
What I was...
You know yourself.
As I was... Yeah. Ooh.
Hey, I'm going to look in the camera.
I don't know who... Okay.
You know yourself.
That's so good.
We'll come up with the title later.
We'll come up with a title later. But we're going to start off with the introduction of Desire.
A special guest.
You want to just talk a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Desire. I'm one of the co-founders of Anchored Care. Anchored Care is an NDIS registered provider. We've been registered. We've been providing support services since 2021. And it's lovely to be here on this podcast. And we provide core supports and other NDIS supports in different states. Right now it's Queensland, Victoria, and New South Wales. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Trady, would you like
Yes,
to
hi.
Welcome to the show, Trady.
Thank you. I'm the founder of Chosen Family. My husband and I opened up the organization. We provide core support, respite, and LGBTQIA supports as well. That's probably what makes us very different to everyone else. And then at the same time, we provide LGBTQIA education.
Perfect. Chris, would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure, John. Thank you. I'm Chris. I'm a brand ambassador for MySolas, and MySolas is a new platform that we designed to bridge the gap in the NDIS space. So that's pretty short and sweet.
Awesome. Well, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Aspire Hub. Been around for 4 years in the NDIS space. We are predominantly a SEAL provider, so we're across Queensland and Western Australia. All right, shall we get down to it?
And your name is?
John.
That's great.
Did I miss that out?
Yes.
That's embarrassing.
We'll play for you later.
Desire, your networking event, it was a blast.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
It was an absolute blast. How many people were there on the day?
We had 250 registered, attendees. We had about 30 people on the wait list, but on the day we had about 220 something people turn up.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah, it was a really good event. A lot of people were seeing really high praises of it.
Yeah,
this was your third event, wasn't it?
Yeah, third event. Yeah,
it was third. I thought it was the second event.
No, third.
That's awesome. I think it was growing. I think first, second, and third.
It's growing exponentially.
Yeah, I think it's very different to the events that I have been to.
Absolutely, and we designed it that way because obviously, as you would know, there's a lot of things that we do well in the NDIS, and there's a lot of things I think that needs a little bit of a shift. And one of the reasons why we do that is also to have a platform where we can network, obviously, but we can also have that CPD, that continuous professional development, and we can also just get to know new providers and give new providers a chance to express themselves. It's a place where everyone is welcome. And one of the stories that made me start that was excuse me, back in the days when we were up and coming and we started NDIS newly, you will go to a typical networking event, and you're that new guy. No one wants to talk to you. People are very cliquey, and you try to almost broker yourself into some cliques and all of that. And sometimes people just give you that sort of give you that sort of ill vibe that you're not welcome here. So we wanted a networking event that people would belong, and both new and old providers are registered, unregistered, and a place where we can come and also get something out of it. We don't just network for networking sake.
Yep.
We want to get something out of it. So that's why we created. I'm happy to go into more details, but I know you've got some questions around this.
Yeah, look, I think what you're doing is honestly amazing. Like, I've been to so many networking events, right? And a lot of the networking events, look, it brings me back to the topic of what I call NDIS celebrities, right?
Oh.
Like, I go to networking events and I don't get value out of it. It's strictly, when I go to that networking event, like you said, there are a lot of clicks, right?
Yeah.
And it's really hard to break through some of the clicks.
Yeah.
And what you notice with each of these clicks is that there's always what I call a celebrity, right? Everyone is sort of going up to that one person.
Yeah.
And the sort of exchanges that they have aren't very meaningful.
Yeah.
And this is something that I see very different from your events, right? We are talking here about, knowledge, education,
Absolutely.
value, even entertainment, to be honest, at
Absolutely.
times.
Yeah.
Keeps people interested. But then, there's some events out there that it feels like it's feeding the egos of people.
100%. And that's the thing we need to address. I'm happy you pointed that out. A lot of events, right? You go and you catch up. It's almost like a reunion. Like, hey girls, or hey boys, what's up? Like, it's like a catch up for people. And you got to ask yourself the bigger question: whose money is being spent?
Yep.
What are we doing? Are we learning? At whose expense is this? Is this benefiting the provider or the participant, and all of this? And one thing that I saw all of that problems, and I sought to, try give it a stab to stop to just solving that. So at events, what we do, we get everyone together. We have a bit of entertainment just to break the ice. We have someone from the industry, and for us, it's another way to discover people and show the plethora of talents that we have in the industry. So usually I'll bring someone from the industry that can sing, rap, dance, or whatever, to showcase that flair of talent, and it keeps people entertained. Then we get into the talk of the day, the keynote speech or whatever, and people get something out of it. But my favorite part is what we do at the end. When you come into my events, you will get a number, and I'm happy for everyone to copy this. Oh, by the way, we do people's popular stuff, Kahoot game, NDIS quizzes. Our intention for that is to actually educate people on some things about the NDIS. So we do things like Kahoot games, educate people on NDIS and a few things. Then my favorite part is not all of these things I've mentioned. My favorite part is when you come for my event, we will give you a number, and number 1 to 5. And towards the end, we call it structured networking. Now, our event is not for you actually to come and network with your friend. It's not a reunion. So all the number ones will go to number 1. We give you some questions, some guiding questions to discuss about the NDIS or about service provision, about participants, and it will just force you to meet the new person and talk about that. Talk about what's happening in our sector. What does October 3 changes? What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
Some salient things that are pertinent to the industry.
Yeah.
That way, the whole industry is actually rising. There's that continuous professional development, and for me, it forces all the people who come as a clique to actually scatter and meet someone new, because that way you get to hear someone else's story. I've met a whole lot of new providers and heard their stories, and some people that are doing different amazing things, and I think it's really important for us to maximize whatever we do and know that we are all employed by the participants. I think it's key. And one thing that I learned from one of my friends, Emeka, he says at his company that they don't work for him, they work for the participant. And I borrowed that, we work for the participant. For me, it's at the front and center of my mind that we're there on the participant's time. Let's make use of it. Let's come back better and not just catch up for catching up. You can do that after work hours. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I do agree with that because, a lot of times when I attend these events, I find myself asking, what is the purpose of, this whole event? Like, why am I connecting? Who is it actually benefiting? Right? And truth be told, if I were to, put my hand on my heart, and I can honestly say that, a lot of the times that, when I observe people, even myself, sometimes I feel like I'm just literally going there just to build my own brand, right?
Oh.
Rather than it being for for participants.
Oh.
You know, again, you know, I think it's quite a it's going to be quite an open episode today.
It is. I agree with
you
you,
have
John.
touched on
I agree
something.
because, you know, to be quite frank, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've probably only attended about 5 or 6 events, networking events.
Yeah.
Because firstly, you see the same faces every time, and they hang out with the same group of people. And like what you said, Desire, they create their own clique.
Mm.
And if you don't blend in with that clique, you're not in the clique.
Yes.
So, and you know, this is the argument that I always have with John is, are they actually building the business brand or are they building their
Their own
brand?
person.
Because if you look at history, if you look at the past, okay, you know, you see a lot of BDs, for example.
So what is BD?
Business development.
This is
Business
development for the
development.
people out there.
For people out
For
there,
people out
I
there.
think it's really.
So a
Engagement
lot
manager. Yeah.
a lot of BDs connected to a provider.
Mm.
They're very quick. Like say, you know, especially on LinkedIn, you see BDs, I'm looking for work, and then 2 days later they're connected with another provider.
Mm.
That tells me that their interactions out in the community and networking events is to build their personal brand.
Mm.
They're not building Anchored Care or
Mm.
Chosen Family or Aspire Hub. They're
Mm.
building their personal brand by forming those relationships with other BDs and such.
Mm.
So,
It's
but
an
then you're
interesting-
paying them whatever it
Top
is that,
dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know,
It's really it's look, I'm gonna be careful how I say this, but let's just start with this first. The term business development. I'm not a big fan of the word business development when it comes to the humanity sector. Okay. You know, look, you know, I'm sure that there's another school of thought that might not agree with me. Some people might look at everything as business, right? And it is business at the end of the day. But I don't think if I was a participant, I wanna see myself as a business. If it sounds,
you
a
know
bit,
what?
it sounds a bit commercialized.
There was
So-
there was actually a recent post that were, you know, it said that the commercialization of NDIS has almost made participants feel like they're cattle being
Yeah,
sort of traded.
exactly. So for me, you know, the name itself, I have a problem with that. The name makes people feel like they are just a commodity.
Yes.
You know, I think it's important for people from a, you know, even from a reputational and branding part. You know, I used to have someone that worked for me, or a few people that have worked for me. I call it community engagement, because that way it also reminds you the true purpose of what you're supposed to do. It's not just business, because business now tells you, like, it's when you hear business development. So for me, it talks about numbers.
Mm.
It removes the personal touch.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my opinion, by the way.
Mm.
This is Desire's opinion. It removes the personal touch. It makes people into zeros and ones.
Yeah.
But when you are there to engage the community, that's a different topic, right? You're engaging the community. Now you can engage the community from a consultative selling kind of place. What is your problem? How can I help you? What are you experiencing?
Mm.
And that way, you know, someone would say, "Oh, I need this. I don't have a support coordinator." Then you can win the job or whatever, but you've also engaged them and you've helped connect them to different aspects of, you know,
Yeah.
and sometimes you can work with other community members. People are not just numbers. Anyway, this is me.
And yeah, I like that, right? Because, you know, it is really important to recognize that people at the end of the day are people, are real life people, right,
100%.
with emotions and feelings. And, you know, they're not a commodity like you've put out, which is why, you know, I think it's really important that, you know, when you go out and sort of engage with the community, it's not just from a place of, look, no offense to your Desire.
Yeah,
and
you
know,
go.
and I get where you're trying to come with the community engagement, but I feel like sometimes, you know, the label itself, the community engagement label, it's not sufficient, right? People need to be reminded that community engagement means a lot more different than BD. It's sort of becoming very synonymous in that role. And how, you know, Aspire Hub, we try we try different ways, and to be honest, what worked and what didn't work.
Yeah.
And what I find here is, you know, I ended up just using my operations manager to actually do some of the community engagement work for a couple of reasons, right? They know what they're talking about.
And they know
Right.
they know the clients, they know how
Exactly.
it works.
They know
Yeah.
the placements. So when they go speak to support coordinators, right, when they have those conversations, it will be just, you know, it will literally be from a solutions perspective, right? It's like, okay, you know, what sort of problems are you facing with your participants? What are some of the needs that your participants have? And when they actually sort of explain their situation or detail a little bit more about their situation, my operations manager can go, well, look, this is currently what we're doing that could possibly help you.
100%.
You know,
I think there are pitfalls to our model
Yep.
of services, and you mentioned it 100%. One of the pitfalls is you generally get someone that probably doesn't have the operational experience.
Yep.
And they are, whatever you can mask it in BD, community engagement, whatever you call it these days, right? And it's and even though we still have this sort of sometimes they don't have that holistic operational or service delivery experience.
Yep.
And you know, there's a lot of back and forth for that person's role because they don't have the first-hand information. They will come back to the service delivery manager or the operations manager. By the way, we've got a participant. They want this. They want this. How do we do this? And they take the information back to the participant. Or, you know, I think your model, the model you're talking about, works better. And for us, we're continuing to fine-tune our service delivery model. And some of these things we're learning and we're evolving. And I agree with you. If I was to do it differently, I would do it your way because you have to have you know, someone who knows the organization and is embedded there, working day and night to be able to actually articulate how we can best cater for the participant. Otherwise, sometimes, you know, the person might be selling something that they're not even sure of.
Yeah.
Well,
so to say.
If I could jump in.
If I can use the word sell, but we're not selling here, you know.
I have seen some organizations very intelligently framing it as client success leads.
Oh.
And I do like that. I think that it's very classy, but also it gives you
client success.
A client success lead.
The funny thing was that when I first joined Aspire Hub, my title was actually customer success manager.
So, like, it gives you a bit more of a holistic approach, and also there's that person-centered, I don't know, feel good vibe to it
but
as
again,
well.
it's still a label, right?
It's still it's just a label.
It's, you know, when I sort of I went to Chris actually, I actually proposed my own role to Chris. You know, I said what a customer success manager should be. You know, it's me actually going out to the houses, meeting with people, finding out what their goals are, finding out if they're on track, and doing things like that, right? Things that are more meaningful rather than it just being a label. And I think that's something that, you know, I strongly believe that if you want to have that label, you can call it whatever you want, realistically, as long as you're doing the right thing. It's, you know, it is all okay.
Absolutely.
And you know what, with regards to like we touch upon like some of the networking that's happening with you know, like for example the operations manager, right? So when they go out to support coordinators and they speak to the participants and things like that, it's a consistent face. So what I mean by that is a lot of the complaints that a participant has is throughout the NDIS journey. It's always been like, hey, you know, I have to meet up with the planner, and then I have to meet up with a local area coordinator, I have to meet up with a support coordinator, then I have to talk to a service provider. And a lot of the complaints around, we just want one person to manage everything, right? So there's always a consistent point of contact, which is why, you know, initially I touched upon the operations manager also being that face, is because when they actually enter that journey with Aspire Hub, right, that same face that they met before they started the journey is going to be there.
Still,
you know what I mean? So for me, it feels like, you know, it's a much better way
model,
to do it. And look, because when my service delivery managers go out to events like yours, you know, where it's a really productive event, there's information that they take it back to us. We share the information around the team. I'm not sure if other BDMs are doing it, but you know, at least they can actually sort of incorporate that into their practice.
Well, they're not.
No, they're not. Okay.
I going back to the networking and those who are seen as the celebrities. I call them the NDIS Coffee Club.
Oh, wow!
Being very earnest here.
Branding.
I'm someone I believe is fairly good at building relationships and having good networks.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is it does become this NDIS coffee club / gossip girl session where we're going to discuss other providers, we're going to discuss, and often we're going to perpetuate stigma and misinformation about other providers based on what we've heard, people we don't like. Maybe the energy just didn't feel right at a table, and so now we're going to start a salacious story. Maybe we find someone hot in another organization and we're going to try to tactfully mess up their relationships. Maybe if there's husbands and wives, which often happens in the NDIS, people start sowing discord into marriages asking questions about fidelity.
Wow.
These are things that I have seen and I have personally actually pulled away. I know a lot of people question me on this. I've pulled away from a lot of these events because, first of all, it's not fruitful for my business.
Mm.
I'm wasting my time and my clients' time. And then also just sitting there and partaking, you being present when someone's gossiping about another person and the organization, especially if you don't have insight, real insight
Oh.
into that organization, means you are just as bad as that person.
100%.
Mhm.
So,
I can I just
Yep.
tell a personal story here?
yeah, go for it.
I think there's a I've got a personal story to tell. So I you know, recently, I think about 2-3 months ago, you know, I know a particular organization actually that is Aspire Hub. You know, and, you know, I know the inner workings a little bit, and the people that are part of the Aspire Hub and the beautiful work that they put in. And I was in my office. I had another sort of provider or BDM crew, and they came, lovely people at the time, and you know, still lovely, nothing wrong with them. I just had to set them straight. And they came, and unbeknownst to them, I know this crew very well. I cannot, you know, I can attest to some things and they were telling me, they were just, you know, full of things, gossip and bad mouthing this, you know, a lot of things that are not untrue. You know, I
Mm.
can take some things that are, and luckily in this sense, I know these people, and unbeknownst to them, they didn't know that I know these people.
Yes.
You know, so I'm just there. I'm like, okay. So I'm listening to them, and I got to a place where I just like, how long can I actually let this thing go?
Mm.
You know, and I got to be, I don't know, angry or something, because I was like, you know, these same people will go out and talk about me someday. So I just bust their bubble. I was like, hey, look, I actually know these people. You know, I just wanted to let them know what I said that to them. They started trying to crawl back all this stuff. And I told them that because I need them to know that I'm going to tell them,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
I didn't get to the part where I tell them that I'm going to tell them. And the next minute I just go, hey, by the way, this person said this exact thing about you that I know that is not true. Is it true? They said, obviously it's not true. And like, you have my permission, tell them desire, told them, and go confront them.
Yes.
Because that's not good enough.
Mm.
You know, a lot of people are in the business of tarnishing the
Yes.
images of hardworking people. It takes a lot to build the role and the calling. I don't even call it a position of a director, of an entrepreneur, of a founder.
Mm.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of can we shake some tables? You know, there's a lot of people. There's always two sides of the story as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I want to get to this because I think it's really worth mentioning. You know, a lot of people, you know, they hop from one place to the other, and they leave these organizations with one-sided story. Oh, this happened, and you ask yourself, right? A business or a job function or a job role is a two-way contract, right?
Mm.
A lot of people don't hear the story of the director,
Yes.
because you enter into a contract to say, I'm going to pay you X amount if, or consequent on the fact that you're going to provide X amount
Mm.
of benefits to the
Mhm.
business. You're going to serve the vision pretty much.
Mm.
Yeah. A lot of people don't hold up on their end of the bargain.
Mm.
They still take the money from the employers and still go out there and take the reputation of the employers and
Mhm.
take it to the mud
Mm. Mm.
and build. Now, there are serial,
Yes.
I'm going to spill something. There are serial reputational,
Yes.
I was going to say demons, but that's not the word. Serial reputational
You've heard it from Desire.
offenders, you know?
You've heard it from Desire. It's
You know?
a syndicate.
It's syndicate. That's the word. You know, guys, pardon me. Like I said, I'm really basic. You know, syndicate is the word. You know, there are serial guys that are doing this, and it's actually important for any employer, or if you're part of this crew doing this, just know that. You know, come run a business one day. You know, if you think it's easy, set up your business. You know, pay someone, and you understand. And
Breathe.
you understand.
Desire, breathe.
You understand that it's.
Preach. No, I need him to preach because
You
he's saying
understand that
things
it's.
that I wanted to say.
You know.
I wanna-
Anyway, sorry.
I wanna
Just-
jump
just-
on this.
just
I love what you're saying.
Sorry, Trady. Just to cut you off, just as an FYI, Desire,
Yeah.
those two individuals you were referring to earlier are no longer with that provider.
Ooh.
So
Oh, wow. I didn't know this.
just as an FYI.
All right. There you go.
Wow,
Back to you.
okay.
Back to you, trading.
Bad seeds.
Yeah, no. So what I was,
You know yourself.
as I was, oh, yeah. Oh,
Hey, I'm going to look in the camera.
I don't know who. Okay,
You know yourself.
that's so good.
Oh, God.
Good luck when you watch this recording. So what I was going to say is, on the back of what I was saying earlier, the reputational damage, yes, but at the same time, it's so dishonest. I've seen a lot of BDMs sit back, say that they're going out to go do networking. When they catch up with the other BDM friend, the wine that's flowing at their table, the food, all of that's going back as a business expense, and them saying that they're meeting KPIs when they're not. Now there's a balance. You said there's two sides to a story. I know that there are some organizations that may seem like the KPIs might be too far-fetched or may not be as realistic as what they need, right? So we do acknowledge that there is that side, and that can totally happen. But at the same time, there's a level of trust there that you carry the same DNA as the founder or as the director of your organization. So I know when I've hired people in the past, that's what I've always thought of, that I might not be there, but I want everyone else to say, Tradie's not here, but Chosen Family's vibe is still here.
Yeah.
The energy of joy and
Absolutely.
the values that are embedded in that organization are still there. And another thing to keeping quiet for all the directors who have had this happen to them, for those of you that have kept quiet, that have cried late at night, who have prayed, we honor you and we respect
see you.
We see you and we respect you. And
We've
we
all
respect
been there as well.
Yes.
I think it's important to know that
So well done.
there's a community that's been here. I think and that's one thing I love about this podcast, right? It sheds a light on some things that we don't normally talk about every day. I think we don't get a lot of mainstream attention or as directors to get these things off our chest. And I don't know. I'm not here to make friends, to be honest. I'm here to be honest. In this podcast, as you can tell, with all due respect, I might be very direct because these things are happening to us in real time. So I'm not here So I love you all, but I think we also are human beings as directors. We hear these things. We just don't have the time in the day to entertain every gossip. But this platform is us getting this thing out of our chest. So just my if you feel and nobody's perfect, not even you, not me. We all have a blind side. I think sometimes we are so stretched out, and as you can see, what we've just talked about. There's a lot of things running the business, governance, and all this sort of stuff. You're employed actually to be part of the vision, to help the vision, to help serve the vision. And I used to be an intrapreneur before I become an entrepreneur. Right? An intrapreneur is a person that actually works for an organization, but that has an ownership mentality, that owns a department, or that works as an owner with an ownership mentality. I've always worked with that mindset. As an entrepreneur, right? You go out there, you think, you take things, you do it like you own it, and that's how I feel like everyone should actually work. Should work with that intrapreneurial mindset for any organization. And that's why running the business was kind of easy for me, because I feel like I've lived that.
You've been
before.
doing it already.
I've been doing it already, and I'll tell you guys, if you feel like no one is perfect. If you feel like there are pain points, and unless it's something that is actually disastrous to your mental health and all of that, if you feel like there are some things that are not being done, why not you lead it? There's different kind of leaderships, right? That you can lead from bottom to top or top to bottom. You can lead up. So it's important as an owner or a business owner. We love people that take leadership. We love people that take initiative. So it's important for people not just to gossip, but to be a part of building a brand, building that thing. Because if anything is a pain point to you, that's an invitation, silent invitation for you to actually improve that stuff. And for me, that's how I've always worked. Some things I'm like, why is this annoying me? That's a policy I need to write. That's a process I need to create. Something is not working. Don't just, I was going to say, was going to use colorful words. Don't just complain about it.
Yes.
Go
Yeah.
and fix it and be a part of a
Yeah.
solution.
I like the term about entrepreneur. I think it's important that business owners are actually involved in their own business, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yes, we are.
yeah, and to be honest with you, a lot of times I see people who are obviously employees. They need to have that mentality, right? At the end of the day, it's not just about about the business, right? It's just about them. At some point of time, if you do decide to become a business owner, if you had that mentality before, you're going to have that mentality later on. You know what I mean?
100%.
You have to start building that mentality now, not later on.
100%.
And that's why it's so important. And I think that as business owners, again, being able to get involved, and that's where I go back to that point about BDs or community engagement, not working and things like that. I think if you're a business owner and or an entrepreneur, like you pointed it out, having a community engagement officer or whatever it is, it can work, right? Because you are then looking after you are sort of showing them, giving them that vision of what the business is about.
Yes.
Inculcating them with the values and the goals of the business, right? And what is actually intended. What is the intention of the business, and what is the business intention in terms of providing to participants and things like that. I think that's where BDs or community engagement it can work, but it needs a little bit more, I guess, mentorship from management or from the business owners themselves. Now, if one of the networking events as well, I just got an interesting story to share. I was actually at a recent networking event in the North Side. It was a pretty good event. I had a provider reach out to me, or soon to be provider. He's an accountant, right? So he gave me his business card.
Yeah.
And his business card was literally an accounting business card. And he says he wants to get into NDIS business. I was like, oh, that's a really big jump. Why are you doing it? And he basically
Does he want to be a plan manager?
No, he does not actually.
I was going to tell him.
So he has a team of community nurses.
Okay.
All right. And this is where the story
wow.
gets a bit more fun. So he has a team of community nurses and he wants to get into the industry. And
how did he get them?
And I was like, okay, so what makes you even get there? Like, what makes you think that being an NDIS provider it's a viable thing or a good thing for you? And he told me that because he's an accountant, he's worked with a few NDIS providers, right? A lot of them, and these are unregistered providers from what he's saying anyway. And he sort of mentioned that a lot of these providers, right, they are running the shows like Cowboys, and that is his exact words, right? Running the shows like Cowboys. And I was like, okay, tell me a little bit more. I'm curious now. I want to know a little bit more.
And reading, yeah.
And he was saying that a lot of these providers are not doing the right things in terms of taxes and things like that, and they're eventually getting caught up with ATO. So people are literally knocking on their doors, and he's telling them, okay, this is what you need to do, and they're not listening. And he's seen the money that these dodgy providers can make. Again, there's a difference between dodgy providers and good providers here. I just want to make that very, very clear. And these dodgy providers, right, as how he puts it, like they are, funneling a lot of money in his own words. And that's where he got the idea. It's like, well, if these Cowboys can run an NDIS business, why can't I do the same?
So his drive.
So his motivation is
financial.
The finance,
and also if the dodgy ones can do it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Look, I think. Look, it's an interesting one, right? It's an interesting one, Trady. People are motivated by different things, right? I'd love to see him go do it and do it well, and also realize that there's a human aspect.
Yes.
Okay. And his motivation is a bit questionable. Okay, I'll be upfront, but it's one of those things. NDIS is one of those things that it's easy to be on the sideline and be a cheerleader and just comment or be a commentator. When you're in there, you know that, my goodness, they are not actually making money. But the dodgy ones are because they're cutting short. They're not paying the right taxes.
Yes.
They're not. They don't have the right systems and processes.
Yes.
They don't have the right ERPs, the CRMs, and all of your stuff. And the dodgy ones are definitely raking in a lot of money. But the current reforms in the NDIS is going to catch up with them.
Yes.
I'm hoping so. Trady, you're not having a lot of faith in this. I see.
No. I wanted to actually add to what you're saying. I agree with you, so I'm actually supporting what you're saying. I just want to say, often I've heard this before as well when I go to a lot of events, whether it's One Community, whether it's Pinkhead Lady, whether it's Tanya Gori, whether it's Tanya Gomez, whoever it is. We love all of you, by the way. Thank you for your event.
You didn't mention Anchored Care.
Anchored Care, still haven't been invited.
MySolas events.
Haven't been invited. Haven't been invited. Just letting you know to date.
We'll fix that.
That might change today.
We'll fix that.
My lucky day.
You heard it right.
So when I've gone to most of these events and moved around the tables, my favorite question is, what motivated you to jump into the NDIS sector? And also tell me, what is your personal story and connection to the NDIS and our clients? Because I always perceive that whoever I'm dealing with, in my opinion, is or could be my family. So the person I love the most is my mum, and I always picture that client being my mother. Would I accept the standard of care and consideration for my mum? And if the answer is no, I can't ethically be at peace with it. So this guy's motivation might be dodgy and weird, and it might lead to great outcomes at some stage as an accountant. But I don't really know how far he's going to be able to go when it comes to actually entrusting people with real good service if he hasn't delivered it. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah.
And people just it's one of those things.
Misaligned.
It's one of those things that when they're not getting into this thing, they'll find out that there is more. But that's not to say the accountant might actually be brilliant with hiring people. When you hire the right people, because I think about people, great inventors like what's this guy's name for SpaceX, for instance? Elon Musk, right? He's not an astronaut himself, but he runs a great company. I think about some people that are in the healthcare, some practice. I've seen practice managers in GP clinics that are not actually from that field, but they do a great work. Sometimes it's about leadership, right?
Yes.
But also acknowledging. So leadership is also acknowledging that you're not an expert in some things, right? For instance, my story, I'm just going to be candid. I'm a chemical engineer by profession, right? But I've come from a family that my mom is a special needs teacher. My wife is a nurse who also works in disability, who's a co-founder of Anchored Care. Obviously, that part comes in. No, she does all the service delivery. She looks after service delivery. And part of her idea was, we started this on that knowledge base that she can deliver.
Yes.
The governance side and the community engagement side I look after. So just knowing your strengths and there should be a delineation as to, okay, this is where my knowledge, and upskilling yourself even in the things that you don't know. Since then, I've trained as a support coordinator, believe it or not. I've trained in so many things. You got a round of applause. I had some studies and all of that. So just not saying that, this is not what just even improving yourself and attending some courses to increase your knowledge gap. It's important. But look, it's an interesting story. People's motivation. But back to the question, the main question is, what is your motivation? It's really important. How did you start? Why did you start? And what's your story? I don't really care much about people's background, but I care about their motivation.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, if part of your motivation is providing for your family, that's understandable, right? At the end of the day, NDIS, it is very core. The whole reason why it's sort of created was to create a free market in that sense, right? Well, obviously having price limits and everything. And, you can't really blame people for having, motivations for providing for their families. But I think at the end of the day, there are a lot of other industries that, can provide for your family. But that's why your primary motivation, I believe, needs to be for the people with disability. You need 100%. You need to have an understanding of the industry. You need to have the passion of community service before you even join the industry. Like having, sorry?
No, I was just thinking of something what you're saying, like an observation I've seen. I remember a time when we just moved from ADAC to NDIS, block funding, to NDIS, where I saw a lot of people, a lot of the independent online platforms, so you had your Mabels, you had your higher ups, that came, your Leica families, whoever it was, that came and was awesome. They were saying anyone can become a support worker.
Mm.
And it was to ensure that we flooded the market with as much choice and option and to give them as much of an opportunity. But now I feel, and I'm not talking bad about the platforms. The platforms are amazing because I used to use them. But I'm just saying what I've seen is you've got this weird, we're in a weird time. It's tumultuous because you've got all these independents now,
Yep.
like we were talking about earlier, who have their own vision and their own motivation for coming into sector as well. And that is also causing friction then with us as providers and also causing competition's great, but now we're seeing it flipped. Like I've gone on Facebook recently and seen there's so many groups dedicated towards independent sole traders, more actually than for providers. And often they'll tell you in their group rules, you can't join if you're a provider.
Yeah.
Don't comment if you're a provider, because if you do, we'll kick you out.
And you know what the sad thing about
I
this
think
whole
there should be a
situation is?
regulation. There should be some sort of regulation. Now, I feel like like anything, right? You started up, you didn't plan for some things, but you shouldn't stop evolving, right?
Mm.
You shouldn't stop evolving. I think we've gotten to a place where, and I agree, before a lot of people didn't have choice and control, they didn't have variety. Now, I think we're at a good place where we need some sort of regulation, a sort of non-negotiables for support workers. Minimum set threes. In HK used to do it back in the days. HK, like to be in HK, you need to get to a place where you need to have a minimum set and all of that. Now we have everyone, there's nothing wrong with it, but we're getting to the place where the participants actually need a bit of quality. We're having hairdressers, and shout out to all the beautiful hairdressers. We're having different people, just becoming support coordinators, even not even just support workers, support coordinators, and all of that. Without any minimum set. For me, it's you can be anything in the world, but let's just have a kind of regulations, because it actually affects the quality of the whole industry.
And you see, that's
the whole sector.
That's true, because we get a lot of we've seen a lot of, I should say, we've seen a lot of instances.
I gotta, man, I'll probably regret some of these things.
All right. We also see a lot of instances where, like cleaners becoming registered NDIS providers, right?
Yo.
And I think it's because, again, that boils down to like supported independent living. What does it actually mean? Some people think that because, cleaners are there to help us to clean, make their life easy, then that's what they think that supports are. Literally, I'm not even kidding. How many, if you ask a client, what is your support working for? I can tell you 8 out of 10 probably would say, oh, they're there to clean up my kitchen, to cook me meals, to pick me up, take me out, and things like that. And it's a very sad thing. And this is why a lot of people also prefer independence. I'm not saying that with statistics, here, but based on what I have observed anyway, is that a lot of people prefer independence is because they're willing to do things that are usually a breach of professional boundaries, right? Things like, hey, if a participant says, can you please clean up my floor? Sure, that person will do it. Can you take me here? Can you take me there? Parents especially asking the staff to perform restrictive practices. Things like, oh, can you keep this away from my child? Can you please make sure my child doesn't do this? These are all restrictive practices. And guess who would do it? Independents. Why?
They don't.
Because there is no education around it. Right?
There's no.
If a parent come to a
there's
provider,
also no consequence.
There's no. That's the one.
Well, it's not that there's no consequence.
No, there's no consequence.
It's just
they're
because
not under the auspices.
There's a consequence for the participant, but what we're saying is it's not regulated.
It's not
correct.
regulated.
Yes, it's not regulated.
For us.
But if it is found out that independents using restricted practices, obviously that becomes a problem on its own.
When?
Well, again,
when is it
I haven't seen
enforcement
anything
is
in
always
the
been an issue, isn't
news.
When and
Please,
how is it going to be found out?
please research.
So that's the thing, right? So the NDIS has you on speed dial, right?
Nothing.
The NDIS, the commission has you on speed dial.
Yeah.
How do they even get the numbers of these guys? These guys are not on their database. Have you thought about that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things. Let's go back to first principles, right? They got your date of birth, they got your police check, they got your house address, even your mom's address, for instance. But these guys are cowboys. Like some
Cowboys,
guys, okay, scratch that side out. some of these guys.
No, I think we
You
have to
know?
acknowledge that there are cowboys in the
There are,
industry,
there are.
providers and independents.
Yes.
You know,
There are always going to be cowboys, but there are also a lot of good ones.
You
And
know,
I think that's
there,
where
there are good ones, but it best, man. We need some regulations.
Yes.
It's
I'd
not
like
fair.
them to go through audit too.
And which is
Exactly.
why,
We need to. It's not fair that we have to go through audit and independents don't have to go through. And you can have audit. Audit doesn't mean that you have to go for 4 hours. It's like, hi, tell me what you do about this.
Quick
Tell me what
online,
you do
yeah,
about this.
quick
exactly.
online.
You know
show
what the
me,
funny
show
thing
me
was?
show me your Google Drive,
All right.
where your folders are, where your notes are.
Exactly. Show me
Very
your note for the
simple,
last 1 month.
basic. Where's all the incident reports that you're
Exactly.
talking about?
Yeah.
These are the types of things. And once again, not knocking independents. I used to be one. Not knocking providers. Am one. Hopefully,
Still
we'll
and
continue.
still
Hopefully after this podcast,
Hopefully
Bill.
after this podcast,
But I do
still
think
have a
as
job.
well, going back quickly just to community engagement managers and stuff like that, I think just in general, the sector needs to lay off being extremely judgmental, like Desire said. And
Yeah.
once again, I think the solution's going to be leading with curiosity.
Yeah.
And Desire wants us to end.
Yeah, I think one last thing here is I just want to point out that the NDIS sort of the review is heading in the right direction in terms of tiered registration. I do think a lot more thought needs to be put into it. I think the last time Bill Shotton mentioned that then because a lot of independents are putting their arms in the air and saying, oh, now we have to go through registration. I can't afford $1,000 of audit fees. But and see, this is where misinformation
But that's how we
starts, right?
felt.
Because one person starts this kind of thing and it just spreads.
Yeah.
But what Bill Shotton actually said was, all we want is just for your first name, your email. We want to know who you are.
100%.
But at the same point of time, I'm thinking, well, even if you know who they are, what are you going to do?
That's right.
How are you going to enforce the sort of standards onto the independent support workers? And I think that's where your idea of like having an online, sort of questionnaire or something like that, or online
Basic.
examination, right, would be good because, there needs to be some way where we can still assess an independent sort of motivation, skills, and knowledge to
Absolutely.
operate in the industry itself. So, but look, I think overall, I would say that, the registration is sort of heading in the right direction. I think if
It
with
is,
a
it
bit
is.
more enforcement.
It is heading in the right direction, and it's an interesting one. And once again, I feel like there's a lot of things that have been thrown out right now. It's just a bit too much to keep up with all the changes.
Yeah.
The bigger question is, how do you enforce them? What are the final details? How do you implement them? And all of that. And our leader is unfortunately going to become a lecturer. Whoever is, I feel like
I have to hold a straight face next to this guy
I think, yeah.
because of that comment. Come on.
we're going to talk about this. There's been a lot of
It's
things that
becoming a lecturer.
it's been a lot of things that have been
That's
thrown.
going to be comment section. Tweet
Yeah.
that and then
You know,
tag Desire, please.
There's been a lot of things that have. I feel like, and it's good. He's done a lot of good things, but at the same time, he's also stirred a lot of things.
Yes.
And he pressed the I'm out of here kind of button. I feel like that's not fair on the providers that you stirred up, the participants, and all of that. We need some sort of continuity of, we talk about continuity of support and all of that. And I think it should start from on the top, but also understand as well, like, he has his own aspirations and careers. Whoever is going to continue this, and this is one of the things, it's probably a bigger topic. I want to see some sort of continuity of these changes and more development of them as they morph into something better. Because I also am afraid that, okay, for instance, if another party wins, they might scrap half of these things or all of them. So all of this sort of thing, how can we ensure that these changes are actually protected, or how can we even take these changes seriously? These are some of the bigger questions that no one has answers to. Sorry, I know I stare some more questions and all of that, but I guess this is the way my mind works, and this is some of the bigger questions that we need to be asking, and it's really important that we address some of these things. And with some of them being legislated, can we legislate some more things that everyone agrees that are actually
and this
good
is
changes?
And the last thing that's to point out
What's
is
this?
Come on. All right. Ready? Go.
How about this?
so at the end of the day, we talk about the continuity of supports for participants, and it is important also to note that continuity of providers is also equally as important. And I think that's where the legislation, you know, like work health and safety and
I
things
see a
like that.
6 months podcast here, man.
Yeah,
Let's
look,
just stop here.
it's going to be a very long topic. I think that would be
Do you want me to cry an
the,
hour later?
this will be for the next episode or next series of episodes, I should say.
Yes.
But yeah, I think continuing the provider
Oh,
is
God.
definitely important.
Mhm.
With that, guys, everyone,
It's a wrap.
peace out, and we'll
Thank you
see
for
you in the
watching.
next episodes.
Thank you, guys.